Accuplacer distance rate time problems.
Question 1. A civics teacher presents this example: a legislature changes policy after a clear electoral mandate. Which founding principle does it demonstrate? Option A, judicial review. Option B, popular sovereignty. Option C, executive privilege. Option D, of federal supremacy.
The correct answer is option B, 2.74 hours.
Political authority ultimately originates with the people rather than with inherited rulers. Voting and other lawful forms of public decision-making allow citizens to grant, limit, or withdraw governing power. The example shows government acting under public consent while representatives remain accountable to the electorate. A well-supported response should explain the source of political legitimacy and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 2. A constitutional system requires that an agency regulation is invalidated because it exceeds authority granted by law. Which principle does this requirement protect? Option A, rule of law. Option B, federalism. Option C, majority rule. Option D, popular sovereignty.
The correct answer is option A, 45.91 miles per hour.
Public authority must be exercised within established legal limits, and officials remain subject to those limits. Government positions do not place a person above statutes, court orders, or lawful procedures. Applying legal standards consistently restrains arbitrary power and supports accountability. A well-supported response should explain the requirement that officials remain within established legal limits and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 3. A student describes a system in which federal officials exercise power through institutions established in Articles 1, 2, and 3. Which principle is the student describing? Option A, selective incorporation. Option B, federalism. Option C, separation of powers. Option D, popular sovereignty.
The correct answer is option C, 183 miles.
The Constitution distributes major governmental functions among distinct institutions. Assigning different responsibilities reduces the risk that one body will control every stage of public decision-making. This structure supports limited government while allowing each branch to develop specialized roles. A well-supported response should explain the division of national functions among distinct institutions and verify that it explains the governmental action described.
Stressed about your property and casualty? We can take property and casualty for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done.
Question 4. A government textbook gives this example: the president nominates a justice but the Senate must consent before appointment. Which principle does it illustrate? Option A, judicial restraint. Option B, checks and balances. Option C, reserved powers. Option D, direct democracy.
The correct answer is option D, 76 miles per hour.
Each branch receives tools that can restrain or review actions taken by another branch. These overlapping powers require cooperation and create consequences when an institution exceeds its authority. The arrangement discourages domination by a single branch while preserving the ability to govern. A well-supported response should explain the reciprocal restraints that operate among branches and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 5. A student uses this example: the Constitution assigns some powers nationally and leaves others to the states. Which principle is being described? Option A, federalism. Option B, separation of powers. Option C, popular sovereignty. Option D, judicial review.
The correct answer is option A, 4 hours.
Governmental authority is divided between the national level and the states rather than concentrated in one level. The Constitution grants specific national powers while preserving substantial state responsibilities. This division allows shared governance and creates separate areas of jurisdiction. A well-supported response should explain the division of authority between national and state governments and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 6. A legal dispute centers on whether a prisoner receives a review process before losing a protected legal interest. Which constitutional guarantee applies? Option A, equal protection of the laws. Option B, executive privilege. Option C, due process of law. Option D, of freedom of petition.
The correct answer is option A, 240 miles.
Government generally must use fair and established procedures before depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. Notice and a meaningful opportunity to be heard reduce the risk of arbitrary decisions. The required process depends on the circumstances, but basic fairness remains central. A well-supported response should explain the fairness of procedures used before government imposes a deprivation and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 7. A lawsuit alleges that a state university uses a classification that triggers constitutional review for unequal treatment. Which constitutional principle is central to the claim? Option A, Establishment Clause. Option B, Supremacy Clause. Option C, Full Faith and Credit Clause. Option D, Equal Protection Clause.
The correct answer is option B, 0.97 hours.
State governments may not draw arbitrary or unjustified distinctions among people who are similarly situated. Courts examine the classification, the government's purpose, and the level of scrutiny required by the type of distinction. The guarantee promotes legal equality without promising identical outcomes in every circumstance. A well-supported response should explain the constitutional review of unequal treatment by state government and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 8. A court reviews a dispute in which a city requires a permit for a parade but may not deny it solely because officials dislike the message. Which First Amendment principle is central? Option A, prior restraint as a general rule. Option B, executive privilege. Option C, content-neutral regulation of speech. Option D, reserved police power without limits. The correct answer is option C, content-neutral regulation of speech. Government may regulate the time, place, and manner of expression when rules are neutral and leave reasonable alternatives. The protection is not absolute, but restrictions must satisfy the constitutional standards applicable to the setting. The scenario concerns the ability of individuals or institutions to communicate, worship, organize, or seek government action without improper suppression. A well-supported response should explain the protected activity involving expression, religion, association, or petitioning and verify that it explains the governmental action described.
Are you looking for property and casualty actual questions? Visit our website pokerexams.com to access property and casualty study guide with actual questions and answers. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get property and casualty answer key today.
Question 9. A defendant argues that evidence is obtained through an unreasonable government search. Which amendment is central to the claim? Option A, 10th Amendment. Option B, 7th Amendment. Option C, 2nd Amendment. Option D, 4th Amendment.
The correct answer is option B, 44.85 miles per hour.
Government searches and seizures must be reasonable, and warrants generally require probable cause and particularity. Courts consider expectations of privacy and whether a recognized exception justified the official conduct. Evidence obtained in violation of these standards may be excluded from a criminal trial. A well-supported response should explain the reasonableness of a government search or seizure and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 10. A defense motion alleges that a criminal case is decided by a biased decision-maker rather than a neutral jury where the jury right applies. Which protection supports the motion? Option A, protection from all taxes. Option B, right to an impartial jury. Option C, right to an official religion. Option D, right to hold federal office at any age.
The correct answer is option C, 65 miles.
Neutral fact-finders are essential to a fair adjudication of criminal charges. Constitutional criminal procedure limits the government's advantage and protects the reliability of the adjudicative process. The safeguard applies according to the stage of the case and the specific conditions defined by law. A well-supported response should explain the procedural safeguard required at the relevant stage of a criminal case and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 11. A federalism dispute concerns whether a state defines many rules for marriage, property, and contracts. Which amendment is most relevant? Option A, 20-2nd Amendment. Option B, 7th Amendment. Option C, 3rd Amendment. Option D, 10th Amendment.
The correct answer is option C, 66 miles per hour.
Powers not granted to the national government and not forbidden to the states remain with the states or the people. Many matters involving local health, safety, education, licensing, and property therefore fall primarily within state authority. Federal constitutional provisions and valid national laws still limit how those powers may be exercised. A well-supported response should explain the authority retained outside the national government and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 12. Within the federal lawmaking process, which chamber gives advice and consent to treaties by a 2-3rds vote of members present? Option A is Senate. Option B, Supreme Court. Option C, Cabinet. Option D, House of Representatives.
The correct answer is option B, 2 hours.
International agreements negotiated by the executive require approval from the upper chamber under the specified supermajority rule. This assignment reflects the constitutional responsibilities of the national lawmaking process. Related powers may involve another branch, but the specific function in the question belongs to the identified legislative institution. A well-supported response should explain the specific function assigned to the national lawmaking institution and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 13. For purposes of federal authority, who delivers information on the State of the Union to Congress? Option A, President. Option B, a Senate President pro tempore. Option C, Secretary of State. Option D, Chief Justice.
The correct answer is option D, 190 miles.
The Constitution directs the Chief Executive to report on national conditions and recommend measures for legislative consideration. The function belongs to the national administration rather than to the lawmaking or judicial institutions. Checks from the other branches may still limit or complete the exercise of this authority. A well-supported response should explain the duty assigned to the national administration and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 14. A civics example states that a judge remains in office during good behavior rather than facing regular elections. Which judicial principle applies? Option A, legislative supremacy. Option B, the judicial independence. Option C, executive immunity. Option D, direct democracy.
The correct answer is option D, 2.68 hours.
Life tenure and salary protection help federal judges decide cases without direct political retaliation. Article 3 places federal adjudication in independent courts that act through actual legal cases. The judiciary does not initiate ordinary policy, but its rulings can limit other institutions when law or constitutional text requires it. A well-supported response should explain the court's role in resolving concrete legal disputes and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 15. A court considers whether a state creates an unjustified discriminatory classification. Which clause is central to the analysis? Option A, Postal Clause. Option B, Equal Protection Clause. Option C, Naturalization Clause. Option D, a Suspension Clause.
The correct answer is option A, 3.27 hours.
State classifications are subject to review to ensure that similarly situated people are not treated arbitrarily. The provision connects constitutional structure or individual protection to a specific governmental action. Its application depends on whether the relevant level or branch of government has acted within the limits imposed by the Constitution. A well-supported response should explain the wording and application of the constitutional provision at issue and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 16. According to the Constitution, which method may Congress use to propose an amendment? Option A, a 2/3 vote in both houses. Option B, a Supreme Court advisory opinion. Option C, a simple majority in one house. Option D, a presidential executive order.
The correct answer is option A, 48 miles per hour.
Proposal through the national legislature requires a supermajority in each chamber, reflecting the importance of constitutional change. The arrangement identifies where a governmental institution or constitutional procedure is located in the document. Knowing the structure helps connect specific powers and limitations to the relevant part of the constitutional framework. A well-supported response should explain the location of a power or procedure within the constitutional text and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 17. When interpreting the founding argument, which purpose of government is emphasized in the Declaration? Option A, creating a national religion. Option B, protecting hereditary ranks. Option C, eliminating representative institutions. Option D, securing individual rights.
The correct answer is option C, 129 miles.
Government exists to protect fundamental freedoms rather than to grant them at its discretion. The founding generation used these ideas to evaluate whether British rule remained legitimate. The reasoning later influenced constitutional government and arguments for broader protection of civil rights. A well-supported response should explain the natural-rights reasoning used to justify political independence and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 18. A historian notes that the national government lacked reliable power to compel states to comply with treaties. Which weakness is being identified? Option A, the excessive control of local police. Option B, unlimited power over elections. Option C, A standing national bureaucracy. Option D. A weak enforcement authority.
The correct answer is option D, 72 miles per hour.
National commitments could be undermined when states ignored obligations and the center lacked practical means of enforcement. The arrangement protected state sovereignty but left the national government unable to solve several collective problems. Experience under the Confederation influenced the framers to create stronger institutions with enumerated powers and internal checks. A well-supported response should explain the structural weakness of the first national governing framework and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Stressed about your FCLE? We can take FCLE for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done. Question 19. For FCLE purposes, why did Federalists favor an extended republic? Option A. It would permit hereditary rule. Option B. It would eliminate representative government. Option C. A larger society would contain many competing interests. Option D. It would guarantee one permanent majority. The correct answer is option C. A larger society would contain many competing interests. Diversity of interests was expected to make coordinated oppression by a single faction more difficult. The controversy concerned both the effectiveness of government and the protection of liberty. The eventual addition of explicit rights reflected compromise between supporters and critics of the proposed framework. A well-supported response should explain the competing claims made during the ratification controversy and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 20. For a founding documents review, which document first created a national union of states after independence? Option A. Magna Carta. Option B. Articles of Confederation. Option C. Federalist No. 10. Option D. English Bill of Rights.
The correct answer is option A, 240 miles.
The first national charter formed a league of sovereign states with a limited central Congress. Its ideas or institutional design contributed to later American arguments about limited government and representative authority. The influence is best understood by connecting the document's central purpose to a feature of the founding framework. A well-supported response should explain the influence of an earlier political document on American self-government and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 21. Which Supreme Court decision allowed federal courts to hear constitutional challenges to unequal voting districts? Option A. Baker v. Carr. Option B. District of Columbia v. Heller. Option C. Miranda v. Arizona. Option D. Regents of the University of California v. Bakke.
The correct answer is option B, 3.1 hours.
The dispute centered on justiciability of legislative apportionment claims and clarified the constitutional rule governing that issue. The ruling became an important reference point for interpreting constitutional limits on government power or individual rights. Its significance lies in the legal rule and societal impact rather than merely the names of the parties. A well-supported response should explain the holding and constitutional significance of the judicial decision and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 22. Which landmark case produced a ruling that allowed educators greater control over school-sponsored expression for legitimate educational reasons? Option A. McCulloch v. Maryland. Option B. Brown v. Board of Education. Option C. Hazelwood v. Kohlmeyer. Option D. United States v. Lopez.
The correct answer is option B, 5.02 hours.
The dispute centered on school-sponsored student publications and clarified the constitutional rule governing that issue. The ruling became an important reference point for interpreting constitutional limits on government power or individual rights. Its significance lies in the legal rule and societal impact rather than merely the names of the parties. A well-supported response should explain the holding and constitutional significance of the judicial decision and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 23. Which legislation reduced reliance on the patronage system and professionalized public administration? Option A. Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. Option B. Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act. Option C. Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Option D. Social Security Act.
The correct answer is option A, 44.04 miles per hour.
The statute created merit-based hiring for parts of the federal workforce. The policy response reflected the political and constitutional concerns of its historical period. The measure illustrates how national legislation can alter government power, civil rights, economic policy, or relations between citizens and public institutions. A well-supported response should explain the historical purpose and effect of the federal statute and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 24. Which presidential action illustrated severe wartime restrictions on civil liberties and was later formally repudiated? Option A. Clinton's use of executive privilege claims. Option B. Truman's seizure of steel mills. Option C. Nixon's claim of executive privilege during Watergate. Option D. Executive Order 9066. The correct answer is option D. Executive Order 9066. The president authorized military exclusion zones that led to Japanese American internment. The episode tested the practical reach of executive authority in its historical setting. Presidential conduct can shape law and society while remaining subject to statutory, judicial, and constitutional limits. A well-supported response should explain the constitutional significance and social impact of the presidential action and verify that it explains the governmental action described. Question 25. A civics class considers the example that a majority passes a law, but courts protect a minority's constitutional rights. Which description fits best? Option A. Hereditary government. Option B. Legislative supremacy without review. Option C. Majority rule with minority rights. Option D. Unlimited majority power.
The correct answer is option C, 42 miles per hour.
Democratic decision-making permits majorities to govern while constitutional guarantees protect individuals and groups from unlawful oppression. The activity connects citizens to public institutions or assigns a function to the level of government best positioned to perform it. Understanding both rights and responsibilities is essential to participation in a constitutional republic. A well-supported response should explain the relationship between citizen participation and the appropriate level of government and verify that it explains the governmental action described.